welcome back to First Move. dLocal is FinTech's latest unicorn. It's also Uruguay's first. The platform connects emerging market payment methods, a whole host of them, to international banking systems. It's basically a bridge for global companies like Amazon, Uber, and Spotify to buy and sell services in markets where money doesn't move through traditional banking channels. All right, joining us now is Sebastián Kanovich. He's co-founder and CEO of dLocal. Fantastic to have you on the show. Did I get the explanation right there of what you guys provide?
Julia, first of all, thanks very much for having me. Yes, I think the explanation you did, it's exactly accurate.
Great.
Fundamentally, we like to think of ourselves as an infrastructural player. So you mentioned the bridge, and that's definitely what we do. We help international companies like Amazon, like Spotify, to collect payments and pay in markets like Nigeria, Brazil, India, Turkey. So essentially those which are outside of the US and Europe.
I mean, these companies have enough to do connecting with local businesses, setting up themselves and operating their own business. If they have to worry about what digital payments can be used, what credit cards, what individual nation, particularly for nations that aren't or have a high degree of people who are unbanked, if they have to worry about that, it's an additional headache. You basically take care of that and give them one system.
Sure. So in some of the markets where we operate, up to 80% of the population won't have an international credit card. And obviously, these are markets that are becoming more and more relevant for international companies. We mentioned Amazon, we mentioned Uber, but this also applies to Chinese companies which are growing heavily into emerging markets. So what we do is we make sure that users are being able to pay with their preferred payment method. If anything, we've seen that there's more and more payment methods appearing. There's more fragmentation, and it just becomes impossible from a merchant perspective to accept all of those without a company like ours and others that help bridge that gap.
And now you're operating with 450 merchants in 20 different countries, I believe, the connectivity to more than 300 alternative payment methods. Up until this point, you'd not raised money, you'd bootstrapped, you'd grown that big with your own resources. Why take money now, and what are you going to do with it?
So number one, we are obviously very proud of the path we've taken. We decided to bootstrap this company. To be honest, we started out of Uruguay, and there wasn't a lot of venture funding available. So it's not that we had much more options but to go down this route. We love the partners we brought on board. We love what GA brings to the table. We love what Addition and LeafPixel brings. We love the experience they have with previous companies. So we thought that at this scale, it was a time to really get an international global partner that would help us continue to scale. So that drove the decision. The idea going forward is we're going to stick to our mission and vision of helping these top 500 14 companies, but hopefully get them across. Today it's 20 markets. Hopefully in 18 months' time, it's going to be 35 markets. And that's what we're going to be doing.
I mean, this is pretty phenomenal in terms of the rate of growth that we're talking about. I think all of our viewers and people understand that COVID and the challenges that have presented have accelerated the push towards e-commerce, to the use of digital payments, for example. But, are you biting off more than you can chew, increasing to a further 15 markets over the space of 18 months you mentioned there? That's a lot of work.
It's a great question, and actually that's something we ask ourselves a lot with the team. But if you look at it, we still say today it's 20 markets, it's going to be 35, but we are not saying we do 190 markets. We acknowledge that we live in a very special niche, which is emerging markets. We don't do any payments processing in the US. We don't do any payments processing in Western Europe. So we acknowledge that this is a niche that it's only becoming bigger. So provided that we continue to execute, listening very closely to our customers, so to our merchants, and at the same time listening to the preferences from the end users, we'll be okay. We hope we're not going to be chewing more than what we can bite, and really continue in our markets.
Yeah, I certainly have to say it's a big bite. I also noticed you've got an office in Shenzhen in China. I'm assuming, again, to your point, it's big companies outside of China accessing smaller companies or operating within China. How has that been?
So I think we've recognized a few years back is that obviously global merchants are looking for growth in new pockets. So US companies are desperate for growth outside of the US. Obviously, that growth is probably not going to come from China given the existing context. By the way, the same applies to Chinese companies. So we understood that trend and we wanted to make sure we were leveraging it. So we made a decision 3 years back to open our first commercial hub in Shenzhen. At some point, we added a team in Shanghai. We also have a team in Hong Kong today. And fundamentally, the idea is that there's going to be winners from both sides, and we want to make sure we're leveraging that trend as much as we can.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch what you do. Great idea, incredible growth. Watch this space. Sebastian, come back and talk to us soon. Co-founder and CEO of dLocal there. All right, after the break,